for the residents of Keyport, New Jersey. You know, there are fears about this cancer cluster related to the toxic landfill behind me. Independent testing has found the presence of dioxins here, which are some of the most carcinogenic compounds on the planet. And not only that, they found them at levels 6 times the level that the EPA gets concerned at.
Anthony was diagnosed with it was a very rare cancer, and it was a bone cancer that just totally ate up his spine and inner bones all over his body.
4 years ago, Keyport resident Sal Ligori lost his 36-year-old son Anthony to bone cancer. Today, he's facing his own battle.
Yeah, I just got diagnosed with early stages of leukemia.
Unfortunately, he is one of many. A few months back, a neighbor started plotting known cancer cases on a map. It started with 41 cases. Now residents say it's approaching 400. They blame a landfill they say is toxic. They point the finger at the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection and have been sounding the alarm for 40 years, as this 1987 article documents.
These are professionals telling us that toxic up there is contained, but it's not capped properly. It's not capped properly, but it's contained up there where it's not coming down to the public. How does that make sense?
In 2010, NJDEP testing found benzene, arsenic, lead, vinyl chloride, and PCBs. But the agency says despite the toxins, they never found a pathway, essentially how residents were being exposed.
The conclusion of that report was, yes, there is contamination. However, we have no suggestion that it's leaving the site, and no further investigation was recommended at that time.
If toxins were detected, if you detected toxins in 2010 in the soil, isn't that a pathway to exposure for the residents of Keyport?
Not necessarily. As I said, the presence of contaminants does not necessarily mean that it is reaching people through a pathway.
I think that the most shocking thing to me is that they knew the levels weren't great, right? They said it wasn't enough to trigger further testing. But then again, Hurricane Sandy happened, and they never came back.
What are you testing for?
We're going to test for dioxins, SBOCs, PCBs, toxic metals, everything.
In June, independent testing expert Scott Smith came here to test. Smith tested for PCBs and dioxins, some of the most carcinogenic compounds on the planet.
The EPA trigger threshold for human health exposure and follow-up testing is 4.8 parts per trillion TEQ for soil. And what my test came back from the lab at is 31.
It's something Smith says is on the level with the toxic mess in East Palestine, Ohio.
And Rich, to put things into perspective, when the dioxin TEQ was above 20, toxicologists get concerned in East Palestine.
The dioxin that you found in the samples, that the lab found in the samples, is 7 times what the EPA sets as their trigger threshold to basically say, we need to test more?
Correct, over 6 times, not quite 7, but it's like 6.4 times.
To be clear, this is by no means an exhaustive study. Smith tested the soil from 2 spots, near the landfill itself and on a homeowner's property in town.
The concerning thing for me is the fingerprint of the dioxins and the other chemicals and the PCBs that I found effectively at ground zero was found at the residence in the soil. It's mind-boggling that there's been no testing by any state agency, any federal agency like the EPA, especially after Hurricane Sandy, because we know with that kind of flooding, that is a pathway to exposure.
While these initial results are not good, resident Alex Kraft says this is at least a start.
This isn't unsolvable. It's just that nobody wants to spend the money to solve it. And what's your job? What's the job of the Department of Environmental Protection if not to address concerns exactly like this?
The DEP is going to keep on brushing this under the rug because that's what they do, because they know, as well as other people, that they dropped the ball on this and nobody wants to take responsibility. And it's not fair. It's not fair.
Now, we asked the NJDEP if they would comment on these results. They said they would not. They can't comment on outside testing or results. I asked, have they tested for dioxins? They would not answer that question. They referred me to a previous statement, or part of their previous statement, which was the existing data does not show a pathway to exposure for contamination in humans.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our News Nation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.